Hey, welcome to Growing Up PK. I'm Justin Vaughn here with my two brothers, Cortez and Julian. Listen, we just wanted to get together and share some of our experiences from our three different perspectives on growing up a preacher's kid. First and foremost, we are the sons of Bishop Vaughn and Pastor Curlin Vaughn of Evangelistic Center Church, and also the grandchildren of preachers, which is Willie Vaughn, better known as Dad Vaughn in our area, as well as my grandmother, Lee Gusta. So we wanted to sit down and just kind of share our perspective on the different things that we've experienced growing up at PK. I'm the youngest boy. Julian is the middle son, and Cortez is the oldest. So I'm going to turn it to my brother so we can get into this discussion because we don't have much time, but we want to give you as much as we can on our different experiences growing up. So I want to start with let's start from the beginning, so to speak. I was teasing my brothers yesterday and said I came in during the glow up years, so I didn't go through some of the struggle that they went through with my parents, and I think I was just blessed to be a special kid. My parents had two boys, and they decided, you know what, we really need to try for this golden child, and here I am. So
Or like
God bless grace and mercy for bringing me here into the family. So I'll start with my oldest brother, Cortez. Since you were the first, what are some of your memories as a little kid being in the church and growing up at PK?
Well, first, it was the first and the best.
Yeah,
And
right.
actually, as I say all the time, you two owe me a lot because I'm the one who taught our parents how to be parents in the first place. So shout out to all of the oldest that are out there because you taught your parents how to be a parent because they had to practice on you so they could get it down for the other ones that came after you. So
and
congratulations.
they're still
to you.
practicing.
So congratulations to you. Now, church was, man, all of us grew up in it, but I guess, like you said, I'm the first to come into the scene, and I didn't know anything else. We were born into this, so it's not like we had too many choices or too many things we could do that are different than what we actually did. Church was fun. It was great at times, but the part that was hard sometimes was the struggle that our family had to go through and at that age you don't know all the dynamics, but just to get to the place where parents are trusting God, dad's trusting God. I don't understand. I mean, like Justin said, he come along. We have the finer things versus what we had, like the dragon wagon when I was coming up. That was the station wagon with the padlock on the front, and it had a hole in the floor in the passenger side of the front seat. There was a hole in the floor that went all the way through, so you could actually see the street while we were driving down the street.
I used to watch.
So to the point where my dad had to put a piece of plywood over the hole to keep the fumes, because we would get to church and you smelled like smoke, smelled like gas. I mean, it was bad, man. But that was some of the sacrifices. I remember times not even having vehicles. Sometimes, trying to, just how things are going to happen. And then we had parents that loved everybody. We had grandparents. My grandfather loved everybody. So it was nothing. I don't know how much they remember this, but it was nothing to see our clothes going out the front door. It was nothing to see. We go to church and we see kids that's wearing the clothes that we thought we had just got, even for Christmas or whatnot. I'm like, that's like my jacket right there. And my mom be like, no, it's okay, your dad, they was in need. I was like, man, come on, can we just enjoy something? So those are some of the earlier things as a child, not understanding giving, not understanding off the bat why our stuff just became everybody's stuff, why our parents, for that part, became everybody's parents. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that as the time goes, but I don't want to take too much time. I'll let Julian express himself. He's the tallest out of us, so he has a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm the tallest. Some would say I'm the most attractive, and
Who is some? Your fans? Is that
half
what they
half
say?
of the U.S. and abroad. Yeah, similar stories. In church, growing up. I mean, the kids today have no idea on how it was, and they think being in one service is too long. We had 4 services in one day, and I'm thinking at least we go to church 4 times a day. At least we can get our own Happy Meals, but we had to share that. Y'all split the fry. Like, you see how big we are? We gonna split a small fry? And we couldn't even get cheese on a burger. We had to get hamburger. I'm not lying about this. You can ask First Lady, and she'll tell you. It was hard. Or spending the whole Sunday evening at First Cafeteria on State Avenue before we got to come back to church for the 5th time. So those were some of the days that I remember, and as the years go by, as the years went by, it kind of got worse for me.
They still go by.
Yeah, it kind of got. I built up a lot of resentment. So you're going to hear about some of that in the next few minutes. But yeah, this is where it all started in the church. So
This is our truth.
So that's the beginning for you two. As I said and as you alluded to, my experience is a little bit different. I think by the time I came along, we added cheese and maybe a few more fries.
a few more
there.
cars.
And a few more cars too. So again, I'm glad I didn't have to experience all that. Even though I did experience still the sharing of clothes that we did, and our mother being our barber and trying to line our hairs with walls, which
And
are
our
not liners.
And our clothing designer.
Yeah, and clothing designer. So God bless her for that. But we had the thickest parts in the world going down the side of our head. So, and some of the things they talked about church, but not necessarily church. Some of the things I remember is the good Indian Springs and going to the movies. And we talked about having to save money, which we really didn't feel like, I think we can agree we didn't feel like we're necessarily struggling. It was just a norm to us. But, our mother having that big bag and pre-packaging Doritos and hot dogs with the foil and
Best cola.
yeah, best cola. So, we're in the movie theater sitting down, and we just kind of pass everything down and try to open up the cola so you could hear at the right time so everybody didn't turn around like, what's going on?
And I still do that to this day. I would bring Chipotle in or Chick-fil-A in a minute. So
And
yeah.
that's where, for the EC Women's Department, that's where all those bags came from the women's conference, because she was packing those kind of bags way back in the day, but nevertheless.
Yeah. So that's what that's supposed to be used for, if you did not know. So a multi-purpose bag. So kind of that's a little bit of our beginning story, but we're all musicians in our own right.
Yeah.
I'm a world-renowned, that you just haven't seen, saxophonist. I know how to play the alto saxophone, but my brothers are far more talented in that area than I am, and are still, have traveled the world and still doing that, using their gifts. So how did you get started? Because we did everything in the church. You're an usher, you're parking cars, you're a greeter, you're all of that. But how did you get started with your musical gifts? Did they start in the church? Did they start outside the church? How did that?
I think for me, from letting everybody tell it, as much as I can remember, I came out almost with a pair of drumsticks in my hand. I played drums as far back as I can remember. It was a little challenging back then, because back then in most churches you had 12 and 16 drummers at the same church sitting on a bench behind the drums, everybody wanting to play, trying to see, can I get in, can I get offering today, man? Let me get offering, let me play offering. So it was quite challenging, but God blessed me to be an okay drummer at an early age. So I got a lot of playing time, huh, Julie? And I got and I got to carry. So that's where it started, is actually with playing drums. And then my mom, our mother, was over the children's choir at the church. So and for those that don't know, our mother, she's a phenomenal singer, more operatic than anything, but she's a singer too. But and our dad plays organ and piano, so way old school. But I'm talking about James Cleveland old school. I'm talking about
James Baldwin.
I'm talking about Albert Einstein old. But I mean, but he plays all that old stuff. Like, he did the Last Supper, the music for that. But that's his style. But watching and coming up in the King's Kids Choir, and mom making us sing and all that. So that, for me, that was the start of everything. And to have your mother be the choir director, you had to do it, or you'd be in trouble when you got home. So, and we didn't have no choice but to serve and do something.
Well, those of you that know me, y'all know my story, how I got started, but I disagree. I had a choice. One particular night,
We didn't get to that far yet. He was talking about how you got
But
started.
that's how I got started. I got started. Y'all know how I got started.
Tell
Y'all
your
know my
story.
story. I
Tell
got
your story.
started.
Go
I got
ahead.
started in the choir stand. I took. I know he probably be watching this. I'm sorry. I gotta say your name, Bonzel Washington. He had a bass in the choir stand on 7th Street.
Growing up, PK tell all.
Sorry, Bonzel, you wasn't really good, man. I'm sorry. That's why I asked, can I hold it? And when I held it, I never put it down. So thank you, Bonzel Washington. Wherever I think you're in Texas somewhere. Thank you. That's how I got started because I couldn't, like you said, it was a long bench of kids and little boys wanting to play the drums like we were playing a pickup game or something. And let somebody sing a song called Yes, Lord, with no beat, and that was your song.
Simple.
Yeah.
All
Up, that's it. You done. Got to go next. So yeah, that's when I picked up the bass. But are we getting to
Go
that
ahead.
point?
Go to your story. Man.
But I did have a choice. Let me tell you this. My mom used to make me and Ted sing like who was we trying to emulate at the time? The O'Neal
O'Neal
twins?
twins, yep.
Anyway, we never sung Jesus Dropped the Charges,
Charges.
but we had to sing, I forgot the name of that song all the time.
Old Precious is
Yeah.
what's it?
I think that was maybe a Hawkins song, a Hawkins family song. But anyway, I got tired of singing it. I said, tonight, it was at Salem Baptist, not far from the
Hold on, let
church.
me say it. This is a true story. He's not lying.
And I won't be lying for the whole night. I'm the rawest up here.
Don't be too wrong.
So
man, bro.
I know we in the pulpit, so I ain't gonna be.
PG-13.
I'm gonna leave some words out. But I was like, nobody's gonna make me keep. No, you're not gonna make me keep doing this. Not, I don't want to do it. You already keep me in church six times on Sunday and five times out the week. It's not gonna happen. So we got up there and we get to singing, or Tez gets to singing, and my part comes, and I just do this.
Yes, he did.
I don't know the song. My dad looking at me like saying, I don't know the song. I forgot. And they mean mugged me, and I went to my seat, and I didn't care. And I didn't care if I got a whipping or not, because I was not singing, and I didn't have to sing after that. So that's my truth.
That's his truth. It was horrible for me because you got me standing up there. Second verse supposed to come in. He don't say nothing. My dad on the piano looking at me like, I'm like, he's not singing. I'm like, come on, man, come on.
But out of all times you hogged the drums up until that point.
Uh,
Out of all times, wait, let me finish. Out of all the times you picked on me, at that point, you deserved it.
So we heard your truth. So that's how it starts. So let's talk about grandfather, known as Dead Vaughn, Willie C. Vaughn Jr. and him laying hands on you all. That whole story, says you probably can tell it's the best. And blessing your hands, I believe it was at a shut-in or whatever happened there.
my grandfather was just kind of tired of musicians kind of in and out. Because at one time, we didn't even have a keyboard player at all. It was me and/or Julian on drums with Patrick Tribbett. He's in Texas now. He played bass, and that's all we had was drums and bass for a minute. And just wanted to get a musician in that could handle the service, that could have the spirit of the house. And my grandfather was like, God told him to raise up somebody. So he called us into a shut-in. We went in, laid hands on us, prayed, all of us. And I tell this story, wherever I can. All of us came out playing, and most of us have been very productive in the music industry in some shape or fashion, form of fashion. Julian's one of the premier jazz bassists, not gospel jazz. He's just a jazz bassist in the world. I mean, and that's out of that prayer. And I will say this, that I didn't know the value then of having a grandfather who believed in you like he believed in us. At that time, Justin wasn't planning anything. He was just like a baby, coming up. But when Julian had the desire and he had that glow about that bass, my grandfather invested into him. When I had that desire and I first started playing keys, he invested into that gift. And as he did, invest in all his grandchildren, but specifically we're talking about us. And it's amazing now to look back then and to see that love he had for his family, but specifically now for us to invest into our dreams and invest into our giftings, man. And it's paid off. My only kind of regret now is I wish he was here to see what Julian's doing, to see what I'm doing, to see what Justin's doing. I really wish he was, but I know he's, as we say, watch it down from heaven. I won't turn this into an emotional moment, but I know he's, yeah, I know he's watching down. He believed in us, though. Even before we knew what we could do, he believed in our ability to do what we were gifted to do.
So let's open this up really fast, and let's talk about what it means to be a PK for you. So I'll say what it means for me at the end, or what it did mean at that time, or what my perception of it was. But what did it mean for you? And let's go back to the Evangelistic Center, Elder Jack Vaughn at 7th Street type.
It meant like a somewhat of a I won't say prison, but
Lord, Jesus be offended.
hey, you know, you got it. It meant you have to do it. Like you don't have a choice. So you know, stand on the straight and narrow. You know, got to think twice before you do anything or say anything. You know, like I felt in the box all them years. And so if you know me now, I was nothing like this.
You didn't bust it out that box,
Yes.
right?
I busted out the box like, ha! I was there. I was quiet, you know, and I watched a lot and observed, but still just growing up, you know, it was times I wanted to do what the other kids that weren't in church were doing, or it just seemed like everybody else had more freedom than we did growing up, and in the way they did, and so, you know, I resented that, but that's how I felt. Next.
For me, it was the aspect of having a magnifying glass on you. It's like whatever you did, it was 10 times bigger than what it actually was. If you could say something to somebody that somebody else just said, but because you the pastor's kid, or because that's your grandfather, now it's this whole big ordeal, and it's all this something. If you run in the church and with somebody else kid running in the church, you the one gonna catch them because you know better, because of who you are. You know, and it was like you almost felt. I almost felt like outside of church there was nothing. There's no childhood. There's no anything outside of going to church. I mean, and I remember coming up, it was on 7th Street. One of the highlights was when they put Kentucky Fried Chicken across the street from the church.
And churches.
And then we could go get Chicken Littles. See, them Chicken Littles they got now is a chicken strip with a little hot dog bun. That's not a real Chicken Little. Back in the day, you had that chicken square patty with that Hawaiian roll.
And it was meaty.
Oh, man, that thing was all right. And if that's the highlight of your life is a Chicken Little, you were deprived a lot of stuff. But that was the highlight because we could run out of church during whatever time or send somebody over there. They'd go over there and get like 5 or 6 Chicken Littles, come back, we would be able to,
and throw rocks.
Yeah, and throw rocks. But then now one of the privileges of being the PK kid was you got a lot of mints, a lot of candy, and all that. But it was always some kind of attention on you, whether it was good sometimes or bad. You know, it was just if you did something good, it was like I knew it was in you. If you did something bad, it was like preacher's kids are the worst kids. I knew that was in you too. So it was like you couldn't win almost sometimes with some people. So that's kind of like a back and forth kind of perspective, man. But it was sometimes good. Sometimes it felt like the worst thing in the world. Sometimes I would have rather been at that time a part of someone else's family who got to go home, who got to pick and choose sometimes whether they went to church. And then I got to the point I didn't want to not go to church. So I wanted to be there every time because I felt that was life. I I felt there was nothing outside of that but church.
So, I'm trying to think of what I want to. Yeah, I will. So, my experience, what that meant to me was sacrifice, and I think both of you have said that in some uh, way or another. But I guess let me talk about the kind of pros and the cons. And again, this is me as that kid was. I felt like people felt that they were entitled to our family, so to speak, and especially what we did. And a lot of my feelings came from observation of my older brothers, even though I was not directly feeling that. So if he talked about if you did something wrong, PK the worst one, but it's a lot of things were in public, so to speak. So if you did something wrong in private, you almost felt like you had to cleanse your sins in public in front of the church just because you were a PK. When other people's kids could do whatever, and they come to church, nobody really knows. But if you do something, then you have to get up in public and do apologies and all of that. And I saw that, although I didn't do that firsthand. And I'm like, man, this is plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah.
I was that guy.
So you saw things like that, and my father is a very giving person. So you see other people, and we had we have, but especially on 7th Street, a tremendous outreach with young men in that area. So you hear people say, call your father dead and things like that, which is okay. But then you see those same people, when things are not right, they turn around and talk about your family. So that kind of hardened me a little bit at that age. And we were talking about this, that I think we all went through a period of, like the little kid did in the video, I'm tired of this church. It's like, I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to go there. And talking about the church hurt, which people talk about. But I think PK's experienced a lot of that church hurt, especially at some point, and it's just a matter of how we deal with and get over. So that's a good perspective of what that means to be a PK for all of us in some sense. So let's talk about, and I kind of alluded to, let's talk about church hurt. And this is not we're not here. Of course, we love the ministry, and we're all active in ministry right now. But what are some of the things that you went through? And let's kind of cover the spectrum of it, whether that's kid, teenager, not just 7th Street. I mean, our church has been from 7th Street to Memorial Hall to different places, but some of the things that you've had to experience.
Well, a few of the things that were very that stick out in my mind were hearing people talk about my parents or my family as if I'm not standing there or not in the vicinity. And then the other difficult part was you're at church and you got these other kids your age, and then it kind of slips out. That's why my mama said this. That's why my daddy said this. And then you get wind of these conversations that families are having at their homes concerning you or your parents and your family. And I'm like, how is it that you're the same one that comes down for prayer, you're the same one that lifts their hands and you dancing and shouting in church, but let your kid tell it, you at home dogging us out. It's that thing of, church hurt. How about this? When people come up to you, they've done this to me plenty of times, but you know what, I want to apologize. What you apologizing for? For all the stuff I said about you. I didn't even know you said nothing about me. It was just, I can't carry it anymore. So it's like, how many people are saying stuff about me? And then when that same person come back like 3 or 4 times, you're like, really? Who are you talking to? And then to feel like sometimes nobody has your back because you're the PKs. Nobody really is concerned about how things affect you. That's why when I hear people talk about church hurt, my answer to that is member hurt. You talk about the pastor hurt you, but how much has been done to pastors and how much have been done to their children, and how many PKs today won't even go to church, won't even be a part of the church because of stuff that people did, the same Bible-toting, tongue-talking, cussing in English, the same people that came and did, the same people have driven out of the church pastors' children, sons and daughters who could have been great assets to the church, but the hurt was too major. It's like you're a pastor's kid. You can't make a mistake. You can't fail at anything. You have to be perfect. You can't make a mistake, because if you make a mistake, that mistake is glorified, and because you're the PK, it's amplified. And that one can have a baby and it be hushed and it be quiet. But if you're the pastor's daughter and you get pregnant out of wedlock, it's going to be over the town. And that's a time there was no social media. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. And that stuff was spread faster than who won the lottery. I'm not lying. And that's the way it was. So it was hurtful. And it's by the grace of God. It's the honest to God truth. And I'll let Julian, because I'm done. It's by the grace of God, really, real talk, that I'm still a part of what we call the church. It's by the grace of God that I'm still active and that I'm preaching today, because if it would have went off what I felt and what I went through, I wouldn't have had anything else to do with the church.
I like that. Should I tell my story? That was my short one. So we're talking about. Well, he said member hurt because that's where it comes from, members. And I guess when your parents are over the church, I guess you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because members do something crazy to your kids, but at the same time, they're still members, so you can't kick them out. So, and I tell y'all, like I said, I'm the rawest one in here, but I am going to, censor it.
So the views and opinions
Yes.
expressed.
I'm not gonna call no names, but if I couldn't do this without being real or telling the truth. So he talked about some stuff he went through and what he's seen. Like I told y'all, I was always quiet, and so when stuff started coming and happening to me, and I wasn't doing nothing or saying nothing to anybody, that's when I had a problem. So I would say about 9 years ago, I go to shake this one member's hand. It's a man, and he kind of like pulled his hand away. I'm just like, I was taken back. So a week or two goes on, and I guess at the time, him and his wife at the time were having problems or whatever. And so I was staying at my dad's house, at my mom's house for about a year or two, and they called me upstairs, and it's like, hey, so-and-so said this and that. So what the deal was, there was a preacher here, and he had a vision that he said that he had from God. Mind you, this is a minister said that God told him that I was messing with this guy's wife, and I was blown away. I was shocked. Never looked at the woman like that. Didn't even have the number. Matter of fact, wasn't even my type. Y'all know my type. And
We know your type.
right. And I'm just,
we know.
I'm sitting there shocked. And I mean, if you knew the guy, not the minister, if you knew the guy, it's real, mentally, emotional. So I'm thinking, this dude is telling this guy that and I'm not even knowing this guy could have pulled up on me and like, I hate you, pop, So we get my parents call. They called the minister and his wife upstairs in the church, and just asking why, like why, and the wife was like, I'm sorry, I should have said something. I knew it wasn't right, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you should have, because I wanted to kick his. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but I couldn't. So
That's an assurance.
at the end of the meeting, I'm speeding this up. At the end of the meeting, the minister's like, well, I guess God didn't tell me that. You think? But the damage had already been done, and they say, well, you forgive and you forget. Well, me, I'm just a little different. I don't forget, and the Bible don't say you got to. The Bible say love everybody, but they say you ain't got to. It doesn't say you don't have to like everybody, and so that's where I think the turning point kind of started for me. Now, I don't resent the church or anything, but I don't like that guy to this day, and I still won't. And so because that was uncalled for, and there's some more stuff I could say about that situation, but for the sake of time, that's just some things that I went through, and I went through that. I went through people telling me who I should talk to or who I shouldn't be with, or who I should marry, and them same people, their marriages didn't even work out. So, I think I'm good. I think I'm good right now. I'm happy God is blessed. So yeah, but those are some of the things that I didn't get on the stalkers coming to church. But anyway, I leave it to because Justin got some similar stories too.
I don't even. Don't put my story similar. Like I said, 3 different perspectives and 3 different points of views. So, Julian, on that, let's talk about your music, for instance. And
Ooh, that's another one.
so, and this I don't even know myself. So, how was it? Did you? Because of course you're very talented and people know you, everybody knows you by now. And you still traveling all over every other day. He's somewhere, and that has remained consistent. That's nothing new. But how was it? Did you receive any type of backlash or hear anything with you choosing to go to a smooth jazz route with your gifts versus this is Julian Vaughn gospel album number 1, number 2, number 3?
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it from Kojic folks, and I'm sorry, man.
Yeah,
I told you,
against
nothing against the Church of God in Christ, but this is what I heard.
That's what we grew up in.
One guy, he I guess he's a minister at one of the bishop churches here, well-known bishop actually, and he sends me this was like when I got started like 7, 8 years ago. He sent me a nasty Facebook message. He said, "Your grandfather Willie Vaughn would be rolling around in his grave if he heard the type of music he was playing." And I do jazz, and some people label it smooth jazz, instrumental. And so my grandpa would be rolling around in the grave if he heard what I was doing. So I dealt with that. I even dealt with our dad calling my music gospel jazz in the pulpit, and it's not gospel jazz. He knew it wasn't gospel jazz. I mean, he's the one turned me on to Najee in 1995.
106.5 was the station back here way back then.
So my thing is, I'm true to what I do, and I know what I do is not gospel jazz. Now, could I do that? Yes, I could, but it's not gospel jazz. Gospel jazz doesn't pay the bills. So when he would get up in the pulpit and saying, he would give us all accolades and Julian in this gospel jazz, I text my mom like, "Do you hear what he's saying?" Like that's, I'm mad. So I dealt with that, and I know it wasn't the norm. Like nobody in our family has, as far as that genre of music, ever done nothing like this. So it's like, when you're the way we grew up, that was installed in Dad, that was installed in Mom, and that's just what it is. So I think it was a very hard pill at first for them to swallow because it was different, and but I wouldn't change that decision for nobody. So
even though we know you now,
Check your balance on your account.
right? Even though we know you now as a gospel artist, but I think at some point you kind of, with your gifts, and went other directions and did that. So, did you receive any type of, or did you ever feel at one point that you were forced with your gifts to have to do gospel?
Yeah, I felt like I had to. Now, the advantage I had that Julian didn't have was when Julian started jazz, he did it here. When I did the other stuff, I was in Nashville. So I was away from home. Nobody knew nothing. Only thing they knew out there is what I gave them. So they knew I was a pastor's son. But out there, and it was the environment. I think some things pertain to whatever demographic you're a part of. Because being from Kansas, everything is so behind almost. And you get out to other environments, you got PKs who not only play R&B, but they'll sing it, and he's not even doing R&B. So I mean, out there, it was just music. So it was like it's not considered a bad thing. It's just, man, he's gifted, he's talented. So I tried it. Now what happened with me is it wasn't jazz, it was R&B, and there was a certain conviction that I felt. And I was like, nah, I need to chill out on this, you know. So I kind of made my way back over, I guess. But then that's when I, you know, even playing with the artists I was playing with then, Montreal Derrick, that was more of a kind of hip-hop gospel. So it kind of satisfied that kind of edgy part of me at that particular time, because it was just hip-hop gospel. So it was just, I mean, we were hitting it. And I mean, touring, doing all that stuff. So it was a great time. But to come back home, then it's like now you got to dumb back down to become the church's version of what they think you should be. Then, you know, for me, it wasn't a hard transition. I'm back home, and then to get hooked into like the Fred Hammond stuff with the praise and worship aspect of things, then I kind of it kind of engulfed me. So there was no kind of leaving that. Although I did enjoy, you know, being a music major in school, you had to learn everything. We learned all genres of classical, jazz, hard rock, you know, standard jazz, easy listening, what they call it, jazz. So I mean, you had to learn everything, choir, choral, and it just and I enjoyed being able to do worship at church, but then being able to go get in my car and pop in my own brother's stuff and be able to listen, you know, to what he was doing and the music he was playing. One time he let me play. I played a couple gigs back in the day when he first started.
That's one gig. And
One and done.
the drums was like that little girl in that one clip when her daddy's singing. They said, "No, that's too loud." Them drums was way too loud.
He told me I was too churchy the way I played, but it was. But see, I caught some of that. You know, how you feel about your brother play. That's my brother. You know, at the end of the day, he's not. What I don't get is he wasn't doing drugs. He wasn't selling drugs.
Never.
He wasn't doing nothing gonna hurt nobody. And he always really, and especially when social media was like start getting right and doing all that, he always gave honor back to God. I mean, he's like, I know where my gift comes from. I know where this. So it's not like he's out there trying to be a God and do it. I mean, even at the shows, he always gave honor to God. Always thank God for Grandpa. I mean, those who invested. I went to one show, you know, about a year or so ago. He actually called my name out, and I felt pretty good. Everybody figured out.
Yeah, I was in the audience. I guess he didn't see me out there. But
I
it
was
was
Julie's brother.
I said, Justin, you can catch on the subway playing that horn.
And he used to be a phenomenal saxophone player for like a couple of days. Him and Rucker. But it was that. So the transition for me was, I did what that was just my passion. So worship and praise became literally my heart and my passion. So that's why I dived into it. Just like when he got his passion, he dived into it, you know.
So on that, and
Tell us about the saxophone.
Nah, man, let's not talk about
Because
this.
it's still in the case.
Huh? Yeah,
That
it was.
Yamaha.
Now the problem
He
is,
got a nice Yamaha Gold, pretty saxophone.
yeah, and I let you use it for a little bit, and it
Yeah,
disappeared, and I had to go. I had to
why
bring
I
the
was-
sheriff to
I
your
did-
house just to get my own
That's why I
saxophone.
was recording.
No, it was at the pawn shop.
I was using it to sample some saxophone.
Sure.
Anyway.
So yeah, I did play the saxophone. That's all I would say about that. But so sticking with you, Tez. So now you know you're the only one of us that has kids, Elizabeth, Trey, and Trent. So being a pastor, preacher of the gospel, now you're in the position where your children are PKs. Mm-hmm. So have you heard what are they experiencing as a PK now versus what you experienced when you were growing up a PK?
I try to intentionally not let them fall into some of the things that I fell into, so they don't resent being who they are at an early age. And then there are other aspects I just try to listen, and when I hear something that sounds like a complaint that I had, I try to fix it right away, you know. And then I try to then, like you all know, and those who keep up with, especially with the boys and what I create opportunities for them to be who they are in the midst of, you know, what we call church or in the kingdom experience, our kingdom experience here on earth. So, but I do not ever try to make them feel like that they can't experience life in some format with boundaries just because they're my children, that they have to live under a microscope. You know, you don't, and I tell them all the time, you don't have to be a preacher, you don't have to be a singer, you don't have to, but that's just stuff that now they desire to do because again, you've seen your pawpaw be that, you've seen your dad be that. So it's kind of like they have a love for church, which is odd with this generation nowadays. But they have a love. They love to sing. They love to worship. So I try to encourage that and push that drive to do that versus. And I try to, if they say somebody said something, I try to go figure out and correct who said what. And now let's go talk to them. What you say to my son? Like that kind of thing. And I don't think nothing's wrong with that at all.
Of course not. No, I don't. I agree.
I don't think nothing's wrong with that.
So let me rewind back a little bit. So, and this should be a really fun conversation. When were you all allowed to officially start dating? At that age?
On purpose or on sneaking dating?
It was 17.
Not
It was
sneaking.
17 for me.
I know we all snuck in some.
It was
We won't tell all of our stories, but
it was 17, probably 16, 17 for all of us. But he started at 10. But yeah, 16, 17 is probably when I had my first kiss. So, yep, that was it. That's all I was interested in. Wasn't trying to do nothing else. Very late.
Same. I mean, you really couldn't.
Did we have any time to do that?
Yeah,
Because we was in
and
church.
You really couldn't do nothing until you were able to drive, unless you dated somebody at the time who had a car and you were old enough to actually go out. And then when I was going, that was usually with groups. So it was usually sometimes in the beginning of the dating stage, it was like 4 or 5, 6 of us going out like kind of double dating. I won't call a bunch of names, but it's just like a bunch of us.
Yeah, after church. That's what I'm saying. A lot of first dates started at church.
Couple of the spots was go down in Edwardsville, down by Edwardsville Temple at the Chas Balls, the drive-in or the
Paul's.
yeah, Paul's. I mean, yeah,
not Chaz Balls, but Paul's.
yeah, the grocery store. Y'all going there?
But Paul's, we're going to get a cheeseburger bag.
Ted's gonna go here and make a couple of sandwiches.
Peanut butter and jelly. But yeah, so I mean that was it. You went out, then just went out to where you could to get some ice cream or get a shake where you could. So it was not really dating per se. Oh man, and then you went to Perkins. That's when Perkins was up, right on State Avenue, man. That was the spot. You had Perkins on State, and you had Shoney's down here on State, a little closer, like 38th, 47th or something.
And Ponderosa.
And you had Ponderosa, but that wasn't a late night.
Now there's nothing in KCK except for the letters. But that's another story.
That was like the dating thing, and then sometimes you just rode around. That was your date. You just ride around the car.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever officially dating. You just kind of.
Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, let's tell that.
Justin missed every. He was never the one to get picked up in the church van.
Never.
A few times.
No, you didn't.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, when Justin got picked up, he said, "Pick me up all the way behind the football field."
So we used to get because sometimes we didn't have a vehicle, so we would get picked up from school in one or two vans. It was an all-gray van that said Evangelistic Temple coaching on it. Then there was another one that it was a blue and white van that we used for the daycare center, and it said "We love child."
Oh, there's a third. There was Grandma's
but that wasn't
oatmeal looking van. Be 115 degrees, and she's blasting 1590, and it's not even music; it's conversation.
And she put, and my grandmother would put those. Y'all remember them carpet runners? The not carpet, but they were plastic. They had the spikes on it. She would put those in her van. So those are on the floor again. But back then, I mean, we were getting picked up from school in the church van. I mean, that was like one of the most
in front of Washington High School
ever. So you got this person getting picked up in this car, nice car, okay, and then here come this church van, like you a kid that that they're trying to do a benefit for you because you don't have anywhere to go or any family. So they hung, I'm here. Like, no, don't tell nobody you here. Pull around the back. It was like really embarrassing. And then at one time, when I started driving, so we had to drive. So I had to drive the church van. I was at McDonald's in the church van. I mean, so.
I don't remember you driving no church van.
I did drive the church van. I drove the We Love Child Care van. And then Deacon Robinson would pick us up sometime. It was bad. It was bad back then.
But yeah,
it was bad. Just let me ride the bus.
So that turned quickly. That escalated quickly. No, but so let's kind of wrap this up on this note because we talked about a number of things, but I want to make sure we get to some of a lot of the positive impact that growing up at PK has had on us, because I think it's easy to focus on in anything, the sacrifice that we made. We did this and we did that, but honestly, in my heart, I don't believe that each one of us would be blessed in our particular areas if we had not been in that environment and that covering that we had and the sacrifices that not just we made, but our father made and all of that. So, what are some of your best memories of church, or maybe some of the people or those members that we talked about? Because everybody's not bad. You know, we always have that. And I'll often say people often label the church as, you know, those church folk. But some of the same messy folk that are in church are the same folk that's on your job and everywhere. You know,
And in the
everybody's
family.
coming, yeah, in the family. So you can't expect church to be any different because it's those same people that are coming that need help because we all have something that we need to work on. But what are some of let's go here, the people that impacted you the most in your experience being a PK or at church, those people that really had a positive impact on you growing up?
Naming people.
We don't have to name,
Uh,
but you can use examples or you can name them. I mean,
or name, man, musically, I'll tell anybody like one of my biggest things is Fred Hammond. That's a more of a global type act, but locally, it was a man by the name of Dale Henderson. Not like it was because he's still alive. He lives in Alaska now, and he just that man to this day has just a genuine, and he's not the only one, but him in specific, he has a genuine love for our family.
That Miles of 626.
Yeah, and there was stuff that he and his family did way back in the day to help us, you know, kind of get over some hurdles and over some humps that I will never forget, man. He would come down, spend time with us. I mean, we kind of played basketball at Ben's house right there on it was on 8620, the house right down. He'd come down, play. I mean, one time, I wanted, oh my God, this is funny. I had to go to Nam Noster, Missouri. I'm not going to say why, but I just had, and I had to make it down there. I really had to go. And Elder Dale Henderson, I'm telling it all today, Elder Dale Henderson said, don't say nothing, but I'm going to drive you down there. I'm going to help you out. So he drove me all the way down to Nam Noster, Missouri, so I could have a day down there, and then we came back. But that day meant a lot to me at the time, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Elder Henderson, for taking me down there, because it was a wonderful day. It was a beautiful day, and thanks to you for helping me out. But Dale Henderson, that's one of the biggest. That's a person that sticks out the most, that really impacted my life as far as our family is concerned. Then we had some others. You had Sister Marshall, who was Mike Marshall's mother, who, when I was coming up, she played organ, and she was over the youth choir and to help with the children's choir, man, to see her work ethic and to see this woman playing this organ and singing and taking time with me. And then, so shout out, Mike, when you see this Mike Marshall, man, to your mom, rest in heaven, rest in God's arms to her, man. And then, last but not least, Pastor Keith Anthony Newton, man, he was everything. Took time with me, made sure I understood music, made sure I understood how to teach choirs, and he really perfected the music side of me in church and taught me a lot. And I try to tell him that every time I get a chance. So those are the biggest. And if somebody said, well, he didn't say my name, it's okay, you're in my heart. Yeah.
Well, I'm going second. You going last, I guess. Well, I don't have, because I didn't get started until about 15, 16, so I don't have.
But I think Dale Henderson's like for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, he let us have his miles of 626. I think I was every bit of 6'3", and you was every bit of about 6'3", in him. Yeah, so yeah, but
We needed it too.
you know, I mean, I don't have a lot. Like I said, not a lot. I just had my favorite. I had some favorite people I remember, but you know, musically, like I said, my music didn't get started until later on. But you know, I mean, I do miss my mom's mother, which is my grandma, because we know if you knew my grandfather, you know he was long-winded, and we had long services, but my grandma would leave about 20 minutes before benediction to go to her house and get dinner ready, and I would be right behind her. Sister Louise McNeely, love you. And I was right there. I still can smell that food, and thank God my mom can cook just like my grandmother, because I can still smell, and I would get so excited that I got to leave the church while Tez was still on the drums. But you know, I didn't appreciate until I started playing the bass. Like you said, we mentioned Pat Tribbett. Pat used to play bass at our church. It'd be him and Reggie Watkins and Everett Freeman. So I didn't appreciate them until I started playing music. And these are some of our local music heroes. But you know, I don't have global hero. I know Wayman Tisdale globally, but yeah, that's about it. I mean, I got yeah, it's a long list, but I won't get into that. But I got to give my man a shout out, Mel Brown from Phoenix, Arizona, and if you ever heard me talk about how I got started, especially in this jazz game and this whole being an artist and all that, behind the scenes is Mr. Mel Brown, one of my favorite people in the world, a best friend, mentor on the music and the business tip. So people don't know who's in behind the scenes. That's very instrumental in my development as an artist, as a human, as a businessman, and all that. So, got to give a shout out to him.
Let me add one more.
Yeah.
I want to add one more, and the reason I want to add one more is I talk about Fred Hammond a lot, period, but the person who made sure that we made it to every commissioned concert back in the day at Memorial Hall was a man out of Chicago now, used to be in Denver by way of another place, but his name is Pastor Gerald January. And back in the day, he always made sure that, and he really believed in all of us too. I mean,
I got to add to that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, he would encourage us, but he made sure, and maybe it wasn't for that at that particular time in my life, it was specifically for me, although all of us went, but it was a part of my development. He made sure that every time commission came to Kansas at Memorial Hall, we were right there, VIP seats, looking up like, wow. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that helped shape and form me musically. So shout out to Pastor Gerald January, man. I love you. Appreciate you.
And speaking of Gerald January, so real quick, 2009, 2010, after my CD Purpose Project came out, it was very hard breaking into this industry to get where I am now. It was super hard, and I was getting ready to quit. I was done. I was gonna go back to, well, I already had my degree at the time, but I was gonna try to go into corporate and do that because I was like, this ain't worth it. But I talked to Gerald January, and he told me right downstairs at my mom and dad's house on the phone, he's like, you're not gonna know if you can do it unless you put both feet in. You got to put both feet in instead of having one foot in, one foot out. You got to just dive in and just see where it takes you. So I was like, you know what? I put both of them in, and here I am today.
Bingo.
So back to you.
So we'll wrap this up. But listen, one of my and he has a big part of what I do now is Deacon George Fields, who has been a deacon for our ministry for a number of years. Of course, you know, he saw me grow up as a kid, but as I got older, went off to college, and it's funny, when I went away, people knew of my brothers, but some people didn't even know I existed. And I'm like, I would come back, and they're like, are you? I'm like, yes, I am, I think, you know, unless you know something different, you need to tell me, right? But, you know, I would start working in the office with him. Again, as a PK, you do everything. But I saw a man who didn't have much education at all, but give his heart and soul to this ministry. And I'm big on loyalty, and I think, you know, especially as PKs, we owe a certain amount of gratitude to those families who have sacrificed their loved ones, just like we're talking about the sacrifice to help ministry carry forward. But you know, Deacon Fields would work. He had his legal pad. He would do those numbers on Sundays, and I would see him kind of do that. He was faithful to doing it. And, I would see him, if we needed a certain amount of money to be able to pay something, he would get in his own pocket, pull that out to make the difference. And that was a consistent habit of his to do. And that was one of the, death is horrible for everybody, but, I can remember my hardest transitions of people in my life that have gone on. I can say outside of our family and, my grandfather and my grandmother, but that was one of the hardest transitions for me because that man taught me so much about supporting my father and what that meant to be loyal to my father in the church. So that was my biggest influence of why, I said, what, it's not necessarily about being a deacon, but let me do whatever I can to support ministry because people see the pastor, and that's great, that's the one that's God's shepherd, but it's often that person behind him that's giving that pastor the strength and the freedom to be able to do what he needs to do, and they're taking care of the rest. So Deacon George Field was the most influential person, and there was others, but got me to the point to where what I'm doing now in ministry was Deacon George Field. So I think you've heard a lot from us. This is kind of what the talk is like at Thanksgiving. This is just how we vibe, and you see that. But hopefully you enjoyed some of the insight that we shared of being a PK, and by all means, we're happy that we've had the experiences that we've had, but just giving you some insight on the past, the present, and the future of what it means to be a PK. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, we'll see you later.